Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. It is exactly 8:23 a.m. And as you all are aware, that we here at Salam Media have been covering the inquest of the late Imam Haron, who was murdered way back 53 years ago. And the inquest is being reopened. The family have had this ongoing struggle to get the answers so that inshallah they can get closure, move on and set history right, to set the record straight for history and to change the narrative that Imam Haron was killed or died due to a fall down a flight of stairs. So today we're talking in context with the Imam Haron inquest. We're going to be talking to writer Nicole van Driel. She's based in the Western Cape. Who is Nicole van Driel? Well, let me tell you a little bit about her, and then we're going to talk about her link to the inquest, Imam Haron, what this brings to mind for her, and then, of course, her connection to the Haron family. Nicole van Driel, while a student at Bridgetown High School in Athlone, Cape Town, proposed the formation of the Committee of 81 that led and coordinated the 1980 high schools and colleges protest movements in the students' rejection of an educational system that prepared them to become cheap black labor. Nicole was detained twice, the special branch of the apartheid regime, first from June to September 1980, and then from July to September in 1981. Assalamu alaikum to you, Nicole. Welcome to the program. And what an honor to be talking with an activist, with someone who, alhamdulillah, directly or indirectly formulated change for us here in South Africa. You are going to be talking to us. You're going to be sharing memories, discussions that your father had when Imam Haron was incarcerated and then subsequently killed by the apartheid regime. What was that going through your mind when you started hearing your father sharing and having these conversations in the confines of your home?
It was I was 6 years old at the time, and girls normally look up to their fathers, to our mothers too, but you have a special bond with your dad. And my father was very passionate. He was very passionate about who the Imam was. He was very passionate about what the Imam stood for. Although my dad was Christian, he embraced what the Imam stood for. You know, the religious beliefs the Imam had are universal, about justice and equality and against poverty and stuff like that. So yes, I was living in District 6 at the time. Both my paternal and maternal grandmother stayed there. The one was classified colored and the other grandmother Indian. And my father was just very passionate. And being 6 years old, I listened to his passion. And when the Imam died in detention, my father was so angry and saddened that the apartheid government could do this to a holy man, a man of God. My father, although he didn't know the Imam personally, but it was very devastating for him. It was sort of the pinnacle of what the apartheid government was doing to us, because as you can recall, it was also the time that people in District 6 were told that they would have to move. I mean, in effect, they were forcibly removed. So that is the one thing I heard from my dad about the Imam. And then, of course, when Reverend Rankmore went up onto Signal Hill and fasted at the Kramat, protesting against the fact that there was no inquiry into the Imam's death, that my father was also very passionate about, and he argued very much for some kind of, in support of Reverend Rankmore.
Okay, you talk about, I hope you can hear me. I'm getting a lot of feedback. Okay, I think you've switched off. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. You entitled this paper, My Father, Imam Haron, and Spyker van Wyk. And there's a very particular reason why you've entitled, that's the title of this little paper that you've written, because you too were incarcerated. You too know, you understand, maybe to a lesser degree, what it was like being imprisoned as a political activist. So talk to us about your father. You've already shared something about him, Imam Haron and Spyker van Wyk.
Yes. So it did happen that, as you said, I was a leader on the committee of 81, and I was detained in 80 and in 81. The difference was in 1981, the security branch, the special branch, they wanted to pin the student protest on a group of us, whom they regarded as the leaders. And so we were held under Section 6 of the Terrorism Act, which means you are held incommunicado. You're not able to access a priest, a lawyer, no one, nothing. You completely shut off from the outside world while they interrogate you. And it so happened that my dad, after they had detained me, my dad went every day to Caledon Square, which is now called Cape Town Central Police Station. He went there and demanded that he wanted to see me. He wanted to see if I was well. And the security branch, in turn, they were getting tired, I think, of him coming there to pester them. And then they decided to send Spyker van Wyk to speak to my father, to deal with my father. Now, in my article, I say, remember that my father was so passionate about the Imam. He was so sad when the Imam died, sad and angry. So Spyker van Wyk talks to my father. My father doesn't know who Spyker is. He doesn't know that Spyker, that there were all the allegations against Spyker as being central to the Imam's torture and death. And my father was very brave. He just stood his ground with Spyker. He said to him, how would you feel if it was your daughter who was in detention? I insist upon seeing my daughter. And yes, my father stood his ground. And then Spyker relented and said, fine, you can see her tomorrow. And then they came to fetch. I was stationed at the Claremont police station, and they fetched me the next morning. And they said to me, when I got to Caledon Square, they said to me, you're going to have a visit with your father. And that confused me because I didn't know what the security police were up to. And firstly, I also thought that if I saw my father, I was going to cry immediately. But I also thought that, in times gone by, they have tried to use people's parents against them. They would try to, use the situation against you, your family. So I was just very worried that the security branch had something like that up their sleeve. But I did see my dad, and I did chat to him. Yes.
Okay, what we're going to do is I'm going to keep referring to your article, which I found absolutely fascinating. And we're going to be talking, because obviously you are following the inquest. I have no doubt in my mind that it's of deep interest to you as well. Spyker van Wyk's name comes up in the inquest, which is unfolding. It started last week. We here at Salam Media have been talking to different people who have been attending the inquest, and we bringing the information forth to our viewers and our listeners. I want you to talk about that link. I want you to talk about how notorious Spyker van Wyk was in the time of apartheid, how he was directly involved in the torture of political prisoners. And I'd also like to know whether you were subject to any form of torture. I hope not, but we'll pick up on that in a minute or two. Let's go for an ad break.
This is Salam Media.
There's no smell that takes me back to the comfort of my childhood than the smell of black seed oil being applied by my nanny. Now I'm using tib black seed in my own home to soothe sniffles and coughs, to help with digestion and immunity, and of course, as part of my beauty routine. After all these years, I've come to appreciate the wisdom in finding comfort and shifa in trusted treatments like tib black seed. You can find Tib Black Seed at all leading pharmacies or find out more at blackseed.co.za.
The only relationship that will never break your heart is your relationship with Allah. Join esteemed scholar Dr. Haifa Yunus this November as she shares her inspirational insights on reconnecting with Allah. Look out for events in Cape Town, Johannesburg, Pretoria, and Durban. All proceeds go towards Islamic relief projects supporting orphans and vulnerable children. Reserve your seat today. Visit islamic-relief.org.za or call 0800 111 898.
The kitchen, the heart of the home, where memories are made and celebrated. Our go-to place for those freshly stacked pancakes early in the morning or for that late-night snack munchies. We are in there together, cooking, eating, and celebrating life together. Let's keep the kitchen a place that is shared by everyone, where we build stronger bonds and grow together. Sunfoil, Now We Cooking. Visit nowwecooking.co.za for recipes that everyone can help make.
When the perfect blend of stylish decor, exquisite halal cuisine, and warm hospitality come together, it could only mean Al Bayt Lodge, your true home away from home. Al Bayt is the ideal heaven for families, business people, and tourists with its 4-star family rooms and other luxurious facilities, conveniently situated close to Port Elizabeth Airport, the beach, and other amenities. Your stay will be truly unforgettable, as you'll be taking home lasting memories of the warm hospitality, the serenity and tranquility that Al Bayt has to offer. For reservations, call 041 583 6415 or visit www.albaytlodge.co.za.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. We are talking with Nicole van Drill. She was a student activist back in the day, and she's written an article entitled My Father, Imam Haron, and Spyker van Wyk. And of course, this all comes to light now with the opening of the inquest into the murder of Imam Haron during the apartheid era by the apartheid regime. And the inquest is unfolding as we speak. It will conclude at the end of the week. And as you are also aware, we've had numerous guests, including the late Imam Haron's daughter, Fatima, has been on air several times talking about the death of her father, how the family was robbed of, their father, this figurehead, this amazing man, this amazing leader, this amazing activist, and how their life turned out thereafter, and how they, as a family, are wanting to give the right narrative as far as history is concerned regarding freedom fighters. So back to you, Nicole van Drill, and your paper, My Father, Imam Haron, and Spyker van Wyk. Did this come about because of the reopening of the inquest on the murder of Imam Haron, or was this a long time in the making?
Very late, I met Imam Haron's grandson. I met him in, sorry, I don't know why my phone. I met him in Pretoria many years ago, and twice, so we were acquainted. And when I started the concept of the exhibition around freedom fighters, I think it was 2017, I contacted Khalid and we chatted, and I asked for photographs of the Imam for the exhibition. And then he put me in touch with his aunt and his uncle via email. But I then did ask him, I said to him, Khalid, is the family going to consider reopening the inquest? And I encouraged him. I said, it's something that needs to be done, especially now that Ahmed Timmel's family had also gone that route. So yes, so in a way, I think maybe Khalid didn't quite understand why I felt so passionately about the Imam, being a young person, but I felt so passionately about the Imam and what had happened to him and for his family, because as I sketched the background. And on that note, I'm hoping that the family will find some kind of closure, because it was a
Inshallah.
terrible, terrible thing that happened to them. And I'm hoping through this process, working through it.
Okay, Nicole, I want to understand, you were very young. You were 6 years old when, correct me if I'm wrong, were you six years old when the Imam was killed? And that's when your
Yes,
father was expressing all this deep grief and deep loss as far as the Black communities of South Africa is concerned, and particularly in Cape Town, the Black community there. Were robbed of a great man by the killing of Imam Haron. The community was robbed of a father, a great man, a great leader, and obviously not only Cape Town but the rest of South Africa was robbed of a very dynamic future leader of the Black community, so to speak. It had made that much of a deep impression on you, and you then went on yourself to become an activist. What was going on in your mind, not only in your 6-year-old mind, but as you were growing in years, that when you were a teenager, you were very active in school, which obviously led to you becoming a political prisoner, albeit for a short space of time, but you did end up in prison.
yes, there were lots of people who were organizing at the time. After 1976, there was renewed hope, and because prior to that, in the 60s, the security branch had really, and the apartheid government had really instilled so much fear in people. Through repression, I mean, people were either imprisoned on Robben Island, they were banned, they went into exile, and if there was even a whisper, that you were saying anything that was against the apartheid government, they would come down so harshly on you. So after 76, that kind of fear was also broken a bit again, and people were organizing. So I belonged to something called the Young Christian Students, and Father Michael Weeder, who is now the Dean of the St. George's Church in Cape Town, he was an organizer for the YCS. So he had quite an impact as well on me. And yes, and then people started to organize. But my understanding of apartheid as being unjust.
And your consciousness,
Yes,
you know,
yes,
how you
yes.
were conscientized.
Because as I said, my dad was a very fair person, very fair, and he was very feminist and very forward looking. Like the Imam took his daughter to London to be educated. At the time in the so-called colored communities, or in the 60s, there wasn't that understanding that we need to educate women necessarily, a broad understanding. But my father, he had 4 years of primary school, and his father abandoned them, and he had to go and work. But he said, my daughters would be educated, 5 girls, 2 boys. We all went to university through the grace of God, and we all graduated. Yes. So yes.
So that was all about your conscientization regarding politics, etc. Um, when we were emancipated from the dark days of apartheid, how did your life change? What did you study? How did your life change? And of course, you've also told me you want to open up this exhibition and dedicate it to all of the freedom fighters and let people truly understand our history.
Yes, after 1990, I went to go and study. I attended UWC, and I obtained a BA and an honors and a master's degree in history. I focused on the history of the ANC. I married someone who is a bit older than me. He was on Robben Island. He served 15 years. He was the longest serving colored political prisoner from the ANC side. He also fought with Chris Hani, so he served 15 years. We have 2 daughters, and then I also did a PGCE, which, as you know, is a teacher's diploma. I worked for a while in government. I was very excited about the new government, and although I'd never been an ANC member, because my teachers, I wanted to add, they were from the Unity Movement, my high school teachers, and they also influenced me. I but I thought that this is a new South Africa. We're going to do reconstruction and development, and I want to communicate what Mandela's government is going to do. So I joined the government communication, and for a while it was very good. I became a speechwriter in Mbeki's office. But at that point, I think the disillusionment was beginning to set in already for me. And I don't keep quiet. I spoke out against some of the nepotism and cronyism in Mbeki's office, and as a result, I was booted out. So yes, I did spend the time in government, but I think sometimes blessings come in disguises, because I don't think I would have been able to stay on in the communication when Zuma came to power. Mbeki's time at the end, it was bad enough, and I think the Zuma would have been, it just would have been too much. I no longer believed in what I had to write every day as a speech writer. It was clear to me that, you know, we were in serious trouble. Our government and our country was in serious problems with where the ANC was taking us.
And it's getting progressively worse. But be that as it may, have you reached out to the Haron family? Are you in contact? Do you know where you at regarding your support of them and the reopening of the inquest into the death of their father, Imam Haron?
I've been in contact with the grandson, Khalid. He read the article. He sent me a text, and he said he learned quite a bit from the article. I think I always wanted to tell him the story, but I never got to it. I wanted to tell him why the Imam meant so much to me, you know. And I think now that he's read the article, he understands that.
Are you going to reach out to the late Imam's son and daughter in South Africa, Fatima, and the professor? I think there's lots to talk about for the three of you to meet and go forward. And at the end of the inquest, is there perhaps articles that are going to be forthcoming from you? Undoubtedly, the family would probably be looking at documenting the inquest and the life of their dear departed father, possibly in book form. I hope you're going to encourage it as well.
Thanks. I would have been at the inquest, but because of ill health, I'm a breast cancer survivor. So
I'm sorry.
thank you. Shukran. Some days are better than others. But if, sometimes you just don't have energy. Otherwise, I would really have been at the court. I actually told my family before that I'm hoping to go to the court, but I haven't gone thus far. Yes, I actually had my treatment in South Korea. I was working for the South Korean government teaching English when I was diagnosed. But ma'am, it was such a good thing for me to go to South Korea, because with all its problems, it also has challenges. I saw how a proper government works, how a proper government, what it does for its people. It wasn't something I read, it was something I experienced. So yes, but I would love to reach out to the Haron family. I just thought at the moment now they need a bit of space while they are processing what is happening. But I'm sure that they're very grateful for the support they're getting at the court. Although more people could attend, I think also people who lived through Imam Haron's death, a lot have passed on. Like my
Absolutely.
dad, for instance, he would have been there. But it's important for the younger people to also know what is going on. And you were asking me about the torture. Speaker did not torture me as such, but they tortured somebody else who was in my group. And I'm in constant contact with him. He converted and became Muslim, and he joined Qibla. And none of the security branch people applied for amnesty for for example, his torture. And I'm sure they didn't apply for other people they tortured and or killed in detention. So there's a lot of unfinished TRC unfinished business that I think people still need to act on.
Okay, finally, you indicated that you're working on some form of an exhibition. What's on top of your mind? How's it going to look like? I know that you are targeting not only the youth because they need to understand what our history was all about, lest they forget. And they also need to know that they need to fight for a just and a better and a cleaner South Africa in every sense of the word going forward. Let's talk very quickly, because I do need to wrap up, but let's talk very quickly about your plans going forward.
Okay, I'm setting up what's called the James April Freedom Center, which is named after my partner, whom I told you about, who served 15 years. But I'd like to showcase visually so that people can see the ordinary people who fought for freedom. There are lots of people. I mean, we often hear about Mandela, which is right, we should. But there are lots of other people who fought for freedom, and it was across the spectrum. Even an organization like Black Sash. Those white ladies would go and stand with their placards in the street and demonstrate against
Absolutely.
whatever was happening. So a wide range of people contributed against apartheid, and that is what I would like to capture from a religious point of view. There were just different people who opposed apartheid and different organizations. So I hope to get that up and running soon, God willing.
Absolutely. Thank you indeed for talking to us. As soon as it's up and running, shout out to us. We'd love to come over and also come and have a look. You go well, God bless. I pray for your ongoing good health and would love to talk with you again. Thank you for the honor.
Shukran.
That was Nicole van Drill. She wrote an article entitled My Father, Imam Haron and Spyker van Wyk. And she talks about how the death of Imam Haron under the apartheid regime shaped her 6-year-old mind and how she eventually ended up becoming very politically conscious. She also ended up in prison and obviously served the current government, but became disillusioned very, very soon after when she saw all of the shenanigans unfolding in government, and she then decided to step away and pursue her other dreams and ambitions. The time is 8:50 a.m. I do understand our next guest is standing by. That, of course, is the project manager behind the understanding of the SAIC is 2022 Infrastructure Report Card. He is Stephen Kaplan, and we will join up with him in literally a minute.